To understand if Modern Warfare Zombies is actually any good, we first have to understand who's asking the question. The whiteboard is back. Work with me here. This beautiful egg is the entire Zombies player base. This question mark egg is potential new players who haven't played Zombies before, but might start with Modern Warfare Zombies. This central egg, the current Zombies player base, is split into two hemispheres. This left-hand side is round-based enjoyers, and this right-hand side is Outbreak enjoyers. Now, why, I hear you cry, have I split this equally? Surely round-based should be a much bigger half of the circle, and Outbreak should be a smaller half. Well, actually, as Treyarch have previously stated, there were more or less equal player counts in Outbreak and round-based Zombies during Cold War, and as a result, I'm going to equally consider the Outbreak opinions and the round-based opinions in this video. It's sort of not up for debate. There is the question, I suppose, to ask of what about the round-based enjoyers who didn't enjoy round-based in Cold War but preferred it in the old games, and how big a portion of the cohort is that group? For the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to say that that group is minimal, seeing as the last Zombies experience we had prior to that would have been people that were fans from a game that came out in 2018, which at this point is 5 years ago, and as a result, I think that it makes much more sense to consider the much more recent kind of census we have on current Zombies player opinions, and then we can talk about that older cohort maybe a little towards the end of the video. As such, I've given those people their own little sausage in the corner. The reason I've broken things up in this way is because the Zombies community right now is divided more than I think it ever has been before. The visuals of this are only going to get more divided as I go on here as well. Zombies started out as a game mode that only really had one type of person that was into it, but nowadays there are lots of different ways that you can enjoy the Zombies mode. You can be a storyline enjoyer that doesn't even play the game. You could be someone that loves going for high rounds but wants it to be a real challenge. You could be someone that loves going for high rounds, but also is newer to the game and as such, just a bit more inexperienced. You could be a player that has 20 hours a week that you want to be putting into Call of Duty Zombies, or you might be a player that only has 30 minutes a week to put into it, but you still enjoy it. And as a result of this fragmentation and this polarization of the community, I think Treyarch are put in somewhat an impossible position, because to please one group is to displease another. So let's continue to illustrate just how deep that rabbit hole goes, because I think that the round-based and Outbreak hemispheres here actually need to be divided further. The first distinction to make is that there are, I think, more hardcore players and more casual players in both cohorts. I think that round-based players probably feel like Outbreak players are generally more casual, and I think that Outbreak players probably overall feel like round-based players must be more hardcore if they prefer round-based. I think that's a general consensus, but I'm sure there are folks from opposite sides of those camps that disagree and feel the opposite way. For now, though, I'm just gonna say that I think that that's a reasonable generalization to make, that those are the most commonly held opinions, but not necessarily that those opinions are factually correct. You see, we don't really know how many people fall into each of these quarters. Back in the day, in the old days of Zombies, and I'm talking like Black Ops 1 kind of era, because in World at War things were so chaotic, let's not go there. But in Black Ops 1, I think that pretty much everyone fell into this camp that was talking about Zombies online, and pretty much everybody else was here. Everyone here was just like talking about it at school, but this was the group that was on the Call of Duty Zombies forum. This was the group that was maybe even dreaming about a future where there would be a Zombies subreddit. Oh, joyous. Like, that was this group of people. That was me. That was me back in the day, making Zombies videos about theories that I had about what GK Nova 6 meant. That was this group. And this was the minority. This, the big majority, like vast majority. But the magic of Zombies back in the day is that this group, just by the nature of the mode itself, just by virtue of playing it once, felt like they were in this group. They felt like they had discovered something really special that other people hadn't fully tapped into yet, even if by evaluating your playing habits, you would be described as a casual. It still felt like you were in the hardcore group, because Zombies as a new phenomenon felt like completely new ground. It was magical. It was sensational. It was electric. It was vibrant. It was glorious. It was a wonderful time. Moving into the more modern era now of Zombies, I think that on the whole, folks that, for example, mostly play Warzone, but jumped into zombies a little bit in Cold War just because it was satisfying to not have to sweat every now and then. Those people in the past, I would have still considered kind of hardcore in their mental framework and evaluation of the zombies mode for the reasons that I just described. But nowadays, I would squarely put them in the casual camp. And if we consider the Outbreak side for a second, which again, we're going to consider as being equal in number to those playing round-based, has a bunch of folks in the hardcore column who I think essentially have played round-based for many years, most likely, and gone, you know what? While this is fun and I enjoy it, the open world nature of the Outbreak mode just speaks to me more for whatever reason, right? But they're still a hardcore player at heart. They still might have been trawling Reddit for the last couple of years. They've still done the DE Easter egg solo. They've still maybe tried the GK Easter egg solo and failed a couple of times, but they're still a hardcore player. They're still working on it, you know what I mean? Whereas the Outbreak casual group is, I think, probably a larger part of the Outbreak hemisphere in the sense that they came into Outbreak not really knowing a huge amount about zombies necessarily in Cold War, realized that this was significantly more relaxed than round-based zombies, and so even though there is a round-based casual component, these guys were like, you know what, this is just the superior experience. Why would I play with all of these frustrating limitations when actually I can just explore a world on completely my own terms in my own time without the frustrating power curve that is there in round-based zombies, or at least with a little bit more control over it, and with a closer in feel experience to what someone in this camp might be used to with the Warzone experience, let's say. You've got to really keep it very central in your mind that Warzone is the most popular Call of Duty experience that there is right now, and Warzone has been that way for several years. And as such, most Call of Duty players are Warzone players. So just to sort of build a COD player, if you're starting off, chances are they're going to like Warzone. And for someone that likes Warzone, what camp do they fit into if they're funneled towards zombies? I think most of us as more hardcore zombies fans, if you're watching this video, probably would put them here. We would put them as casual fans of Outbreak because that's the experience that's most close to Warzone. Interestingly, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I think that hardcore zombies players, truly hardcore round-based enjoyers, are probably actually less likely to enjoy Warzone, or at least enjoy Warzone as much. I think that the things that appeal to hardcore round-based enjoyers probably don't have as much alignment with enjoyment of Warzone compared to folks, for example, in this quarter. So we're beginning to build up a picture of who the zombies fans that are out there right now are and what it is that they like and dislike, right? We can add a little more detail to the chart with how often these people play the game. I've described round-based hardcore players as playing a lot, which we'll unpack in a moment. I've put round-based casual players as playing occasionally, and by occasionally I mean maybe once a week, maybe a couple times a week, but that would be getting towards being a little bit more of a fan, I would say. And remember, we're talking the general population of players here, so you have to imagine the least interested people. If they still play, they're in this camp. They're in the casual camp. Let's detach from the perception that many of us have in the more hardcore side of the community that everyone is as into this as we are. They're not. I've then put Outbreak hardcore players as playing often, and you'll notice here that I've described this differently to playing a lot on the round-based side. Again, we'll get into that momentarily. And then for Outbreak casual players, I've also said that they probably just play occasionally. Once a week, they jump on, they play for an hour, they jump off, they've had a good time, thumbs up. Now, my reasoning for differentiating between the hardcore Outbreak and hardcore round-based time played in the game in a given week, let's say, is because from my perspective, the experience of being a hardcore round-based zombies fan, that's folks in this quarter, extends beyond just actually sitting down, picking up a controller and playing the game. I've always felt like participating in play in the zombies community has extended to the discussions online. It's extended to the wondering about ciphers that are unsolved. It's extended to watching YouTube videos about theories about that story, about radios, about interesting new trailers that we've had released. It's about the dev interviews. It's about the speedrunning community. It's about the high round community. It's about all those other elements. I think that the participation in that overall kind of gateway to the IP fits this community the best. And I think that it would be a completely reasonable guess to say that the majority of my viewers are also in this category. Reason being, they're probably the cohort that watched the most videos about the mode. These people, don't get me wrong, still watch the content, but they're less likely to comment. They maybe just think that it's not as deep. And granted, folks in the hardcore Outbreak category, they're definitely out there. I think that they're, by comparison, relatively speaking, less vocal than the round-based hardcore, I've been a Zombies fan for 12 years, enjoyers, such as myself. That isn't to say that they don't have opinions. That isn't to say that their opinions aren't valid by any means. But I just think that in this quarter, we make a lot of noise. This is borne out by the data as well, because I did a poll on the day that Modern Warfare Zombies got revealed, not the cinematic trailer, the gameplay stuff. So it's mainly my followers, or it's the folks who have been recommended my tweets, who presumably follow accounts similar to mine, answering this poll, and these are the results. As you can see, overall, people's reaction to Modern Warfare Zombies was negative, based on the poll. But we have to ask who's answering the poll, and like I just said, I think that these are the people answering the poll, and as such, obviously, these people getting a mode that is not round-based are going to be unhappy with it and are therefore going to rate it more low. Compared to the audience testing that Activision does every single year with any new mode that it makes ever, finding groups of complete generic vanilla normies out in the wild who can hardly tie their shoelaces together, let alone name a video game that they actually enjoy, to play test this new thing and tell Activision whether or not it was fun and that they would play it again. This is common practice in the industry. All game studios do it, and it happens outside the games industry too. Like, you always find test audiences to experiment with to try and understand whether your new thing is going to be a hit in the global wider population, beyond just the folks that are already mega invested in your game. And so, to some extent, we can use this question mark to describe that cohort, but also a little bit can use this quarter to describe that cohort. Those are the sorts of people that I think, if I had managed to reach in my poll in the same way that Activision would do and Treyarch would do in their testing, I think that they would have found a much greater skew towards liking the reveal of Modern Warfare Zombies. This was articulated by Lex in a tweet, as you can see here, and I responded saying, I agree with him. Like, clearly, the round-based cohort answering my poll have voted negatively, but for the more casual fan, in this camp here, or maybe over here, is probably going to embrace it a little bit more fondly with slightly more open arms. But this doesn't answer the question of whether it's actually good, and it doesn't mean that just because those people will enjoy it, it should be free of critique. Like, there's a lot of dimensions to this here, and if we're gonna have an adult, serious conversation about our artistic evaluation of what we've seen so far, we need to be able to recognize that people in this camp saying that they don't like it are valid, and people in this camp saying that they like it are equally valid. As much as it stings, just because we've been Zombies fans for over a decade now, doesn't mean that we are entitled to every future iteration of everything that contains a zombie. It absolutely means that we should be heard and express ourselves, but just at least to a minor degree, we need to have a voice in the back of our heads saying, these people do exist. And as such, I wonder what they're thinking. And that's what this video is aiming to present, amongst other things. Now, there's been a sort of quite unfortunate trend that I've seen in the last few years, especially since the release of Outbreak, and even more so maybe since the release of the statistic that is pretty much 50-50 split between round-based and Outbreak right now, where I've seen folks in the Zombies community online trashing anyone that has opposing opinions to them about where the mode is going. And it's not trashing their opinion of what is or isn't good artistically, it's just trashing them as a person. It's ad hominem. It's seeing someone saying, for example, I'm a round-based fan and I don't like this and I think this sucks, and it's looking at them and going, they're out of touch and they should take a hike. They should just shut up. And the same happens vice versa when folks say, I'm an Outbreak fan, and I actually really like the look of this new mode. And then there are other folks that say, you're not a real Zombies fan, you don't deserve this, you should shut up. And it means that any discourse that we hope to have in the Zombies community is just doomed from the get-go. It really sucks, and it makes me really sad because I used to absolutely love engaging with discussions in this community about all aspects and facets of the mode, but I've really noticed in recent years an inability for people to separate artistic interpretation and opinions about a piece of art from someone's core humanity, and disagreement with that artistic interpretation is seen as that person therefore being a bad person. And I see it all the time. Like, I see fights breaking out on Twitter or elsewhere, and it's just like, guys, we're all here for the same thing ultimately, right? We're all here because we love zombies in one way or another. Maybe we love it in a once a week kind of capacity. Maybe we love it in a I've been playing this as my primary video game hobby for the last decade kind of category. But ultimately, we like the game. And as such, even if someone else likes a different part of the game to you, or someone says, I think that this new thing sucks, but you're sitting there like, but I liked it. That doesn't mean you need to start strangling that other person. You can instead just say, cool, I'm glad you liked the thing that I didn't like. Or, oh, that's interesting. You really disliked this thing. I really liked it. Isn't that crazy? Like, it can end there. This is apparently lost on the zombies community in 2023, though. It's sad, but we're working on it. So, with this absolute boatload of context provided to you, let's now talk about what the actual player base seeing the Modern Warfare Zombies gameplay, etc., is going to be thinking here, and where I stand, what I think about all of this. And I've had to give all this context because if I, as someone who sits in this camp but doesn't really play the game that much, to be completely honest with you, and I've been completely honest about that forever, it's my job. If I played this game every single day, I would go insane. But I obviously am thinking about zombies 24/7. And as such, as I described before, I put myself into this category because I think that playing in the context of the zombies community and the zombies IP includes all of that wider scope of engagement, not just having a controller in your hand at all times. So as someone in this camp, I often make videos talking about the needs and opinions of many of the people, not all of them, but many of the people in that quarter. And you'll see in the comment sections of my videos, thousands of people that agree with me, but you'll then also see folks that say that I personally have outdated opinions or whatever it might be, but there are thousands of people in this group in my comment section that do agree with me. And so by writing me off just because you don't like me also erases the opinions that are being echoed in my comment section of lots of other people in this group. And again, alienating everyone in that way just does us no favors. So I've really tried to kind of lay out the spectrum of zombies fans on this whiteboard today. So let's begin with the casual side of things, okay? Let's start here with Outbreak casual players. I think that casual Outbreak players and also new folks here as well are going to look at the Modern Warfare Zombies mode and think two things. Number one, I think they're going to think, yeah, that looks pretty cool. Like, overall, that looks fun. I would try that. And number two, I think they're going to think, is this something that I can sink more time into beyond just like 30 minutes of play? And I think the answer to that second question is kind of wrapped up in the whole camos debate and end game and stuff like that, which starts getting very quickly towards territory here. But I think it's something that many casuals use as an anchoring point as well. And the fact that Zombies does have mastery camos in this game, and there is extensive camo unlocking in the Zombies mode, means that those casual players that do want to have some kind of overall goal or objective or something to be working towards in the long run are probably sitting in this group right now going, you know what? There's something there for me to work towards, so I'm happy. Like, it looks good. I think those people have also seen the Pack-a-Punch and the Mystery Box and wall guns and all those sorts of things in Outbreak and are seeing them back here now with familiar enemies too and going, you know what? I really enjoyed Outbreak and I wouldn't be in this group if I didn't enjoy Outbreak, and as such, there's a very strong chance that this Outbreak-like experience, but seemingly more expansive, is going to be something I enjoy. And so I think that folks in this hemisphere, but especially folks in this cohort, are probably giving the mode an evaluation of, let's say, an 8.5 out of 10 right now. In the Outbreak hardcore community, I think those folks are more likely to enjoy the Outbreak main quest Easter egg. I think that those folks also participate in a bit more of the sort of overall zombies discourse that you also get in the round-based hardcore camp. And as such, I think they're probably looking at this going, it's nice that all this stuff is here, but it does look pretty similar to Cold War. It's just that you've made it so that there are other players in our matches now, and that's probably a good thing, that's probably cool, but I can't play it offline, and that sucks. I think that this group probably doesn't even know that you can't play it offline yet, like that information probably hasn't even reached them, so it probably doesn't affect their score, to be honest. But I think for these folks, they are unhappy about the fact that we have fewer options as a player base as to how we choose to engage with this mode. I think this group also are looking at the DMZ experience that they've had in the past 12 months, and they've gone, well, that wasn't super fun for solo players. Like, it was just tricky, and granted, there was a group of people that really did enjoy solo DMZ, and they made it a new playstyle almost the way that they engaged with it. But the general solo player found it a bit tricky in DMZ, but by all intents and purposes, based on the marketing that we've received so far, it sounds like the Modern Warfare Zombies experience for a solo player is really not going to be fantastic. Noah's video is an especially good representation of this. Noah is someone that really loves playing solo zombies. And also, even when he is playing with people, he likes to roam around. He likes to just be a free spirit in the game. And he specifically said that it was really not suitable for solo players. And I think that the hardcore Outbreak community are not going to like that, but they are overall still going to look at the mode in general and say, I think that there is fun to be had here. I look forward to the camo grind. I'm disappointed about no main quest Easter egg at launch because I really enjoyed the Outbreak Easter egg, but still, it's directionally the sort of thing that I really love, and as such, I'm still hyped. As such, I'm gonna overall evaluate the hype levels that group is feeling right now as probably a fairly even 7. There is definite excitement, but I don't think that there's been a lot of stuff in the gameplay that we've seen that has blown them away by any means and made them go, oh my god, this is gonna be infinitely better than Cold War, as in Outbreak in Cold War. And as such, I think that they're just like, yeah, I mean, it looks good. I'll definitely play it. I look forward to seeing what they have in store for me. Now let's talk about the round-based side. If you are a casual round-based player right now, I would posit the suggestion that you probably feel like it's better this year to have something zombies related than nothing zombies related. Like, I'm talking the casual player base here, right? I think that you would rather have a zombie experience, even if it wasn't round-based, compared to the possible scenario where there is just no zombies and they save the zombies development for round-based in 2024. So seeing the fact that there is a zombies mode in the game for one of the casuals in this group here probably is a positive. Those people also play the game casually, and as a result, probably don't mind too much that there is no Easter egg at launch, because they'll just do the Easter egg when the Easter egg comes out. They're going to be content to some extent with having a zombies experience at launch, and the prospect of doing things like taking down a world boss sounds like some of the things that they've been trying to do in trying some of those older Easter eggs from the previous games, and as a result, it still feels like there is potential for it to be a little bit similar to some of the things that they've experienced in the round-based mode, and as a result, again, don't think they'll be too mad overall. I think that they would much prefer it to just be round-based because they're a round-based enjoyer, but again, they're a casual here, and so I think that they're like, well, it's not what I would have chosen, but I'll still give it a go. And I think that that is more or less like a 5 on the scale. It feels pretty almost indifferent to the mode, maybe, and that's why I'm giving it a 5. Like, it's fairly neutral. It's fairly middle of the road. And that brings us to you rascal, in this quarter here, making all these problems. I am also one of those people, for the record. It's almost like the universe has given me a message in making this video, reflecting my light off this particular quadrant to say, we are the enlightened group. We know better than everyone else. It's not true. But our opinions still matter. Crazy that. And I think that folks in this group probably, for the most part, feel the following way. If something is marketed as zombies, there are certain things that spring to mind as to what that means. And again, just to be abundantly clear, I am framing this from the perspective of somebody in this group, okay? A hardcore player, a player that self-identifies as a hardcore zombies player, probably feels like hardcore zombies player means hardcore round-based player. And so the presentation of Modern Warfare Zombies straight away probably puts a slightly bitter taste in their mouth because they feel like the round-based mode has been replaced with something a little bit more casual friendly, and the hardcore folks over here maybe feel a little bit left behind. You see this all over my comment section. You see it all over the quote tweets on the gameplay that was released by Activision during COD Next of the Modern Warfare Zombies mode, because those quote tweets are saying, I am a round-based enjoyer, and this isn't zombies. What is this mess? That's what those people are saying. Now, that's not to say that just because they called it Modern Warfare Zombies means that every single person in that category is thinking, well, it has to be round-based then because they just used the wording zombies. But I encourage you, challenge your thinking for a moment here. Click the link in the description to the YouTube short I posted asking people whether or not they think that the word zombies basically means round-based, and you'll see that no one in the comment section can agree. There is a huge amount of discrepancy between what people's interpretation is there. So to say carte blanche that absolutely everyone that sees Modern Warfare Zombies is going to think that means round-based is obviously false. But similarly, there are people out there that think that Modern Warfare Zombies means that it's going to have the older Zombies round-based flavor, even if not necessarily being a round-based specific mode. This is why I've had to give so much context here. Like, we gotta be cognizant of the fact that we disagree, because as soon as you start pushing that kind of out of the window here, you end up shuffling yourself out of the window instead. Like, we don't get anywhere. So I think that the majority of round-based folks sort of feel like, oh, well, they're calling it Modern Warfare Zombies. It doesn't feel like zombies to me. And then they're looking at the marketing where they said, we've got things for veteran players, such as a pack-a-punch machine and perk machines and a mystery box. And they're seeing that wording from the devs and they're going, I feel a bit disrespected right now, because those things that you've just listed are not things that the hardcore player cares about in a mega significant way. Like, that's a little bit more, I think, in this camp, actually, because that's the sort of person that jumps on, plays for 30 minutes, jumps off, and they've had their experience, and they just enjoy the existence of a pack-a-punch machine. Whereas the hardcore players are sort of thinking, I know that there is going to be a pack-a-punch. That doesn't feel like something that is going to hook me as a veteran player. I want more alternate ammo types. Or I want a completely newly functioning alternate ammo type system. Or I want completely new field upgrades. Or I want changes to the points system again. Like, those are the sorts of things that the hardcore players are thinking about. And so for the marketing to come out and be like, we've got a pack-a-punch, sort of feels like a misunderstanding of what that hardcore player base actually gives a damn about in the first place. So from marketing alone, I think that even if the mode is fun, it's lost a bit of social capital in the minds of that hardcore player base just because they don't feel like they've been spoken to here. Another example of this comes from the Treyarch Twitter account, where Treyarch just tweeted out a generic video of a bit of Zombies gameplay, and somebody responded saying, will there be an Easter egg or story to this game? And as a hardcore round-based enjoyer, seeing the question of will there be an Easter egg to this game means one thing, right? That means only one thing in our minds. Will there be an Easter egg means, will there be a main quest Easter egg? I don't think a single, and I genuinely think that this generalization is accurate, I don't think a single hardcore round-based player would see, will there be an Easter egg, those words, and think, oh, that person must have meant, will there be mini Easter eggs littered through the maps? Like, for example, a Willard Wyler poster on the wall. Like, that kind of mini Easter egg is not what that question is asking, right? It's not saying, will there be little mini scraps and bits and pieces here and there? It's saying, will there be an Easter egg, as in a main quest Easter egg? As someone in this group, I think that that is an assumption that you are making based on that wording. Because why would you ask, like, is there going to be an Easter egg if you didn't mean that, right? Like, are you just saying, like, will there be a poster on a wall? Like, it's almost a non-question. And so as a round-based hardcore player who knows that there is not a main quest Easter egg at launch, we would presume that the answer to this question would be, no, there is not a main quest Easter egg. However, there are plenty of side quests sprinkled around the map, if you wanted to sort of corporatize it and put it into marketing speak, right? But instead, Treyarch did something that I feel is actually a little bit deceptive, because they responded reframing the question and just said, story, checkmark, Easter eggs / secrets, checkmark. So they've taken what we would interpret as one question and they've actually answered a different question, because they're saying there are Easter eggs, but they're not answering the question of, is there an Easter egg in the framing that I've just described based on how this cohort thinks. I think this kind of marketing burns the bridge between Treyarch and that hardcore round-based community who already feel a little bit left out based on the fact that there isn't round-based in the main game, at least at launch this year. Because we see this, and we see this tweet, and you can look at the replies to that tweet that Treyarch put out, by the way, because one person says cap, another says plain lie, there is no main Easter egg, another person says yes in all caps, as if they've interpreted it that there is a main quest Easter egg at launch, because otherwise, like, are they really going to be yes in all capsing to just there being a story and some Easter eggs? I think it's unlikely. And then Margwa says, super deceptive. They're obviously talking about mainline Easter eggs in their question, not little secrets here and there like you've responded with in your reply. So in my opinion, this kind of marketing is poisonous. I think that it's a really, really bad look for Treyarch. And I think that in combination with things like saying, for veteran players, we have a pack-a-punch, it means that this group feels really alienated right now. And obviously, as a result of that, alienation is the sort of thing that is going to breed more argument starting, more viciousness on the timeline, more unwillingness to give the new mode a try, more unwillingness to engage with the people in these groups as well. Like, you alienate someone and you silo them. And something I've felt for a really long time about Treyarch's marketing for the zombies mode in general is that it hasn't felt like they've been speaking the language of the hardcore zombies player base nearly ever. They do it very, very infrequently, and it's unfortunate because if they did that more often, I think that the round-based people that weren't getting round-based would still actually be largely on board with the decisions being made, just because they felt like they were being spoken to. An example of this is Kevin Drew responding to a tweet about the possibility that there wouldn't be round-based maps after Forsaken in Cold War, like ever. Like, that was the last round-based map forever. And Kevin Drew clearly pushed back on that, and that was a fantastic pushback because it meant that this group of people felt spoken to. But sadly, the majority of the time outside of instances like that, they don't, and I think that causes a lot of problems. I said this in a tweet the other day. I said that the semi-deceptive marketing that Treyarch uses, I think, harms their cause. And I'm sure there were a bunch of discussions, as there always are. I'm a public figure, it comes with the turf, but there were a bunch of discussions about the fact that I said that their marketing was deceptive and like, oh God, here we go again. First, Milo was upset there was no sound on a trailer, and now he's moaning about deceptive marketing because he thought it was going to be round-based just because it's called Zombies, even though it obviously isn't and hasn't been described as being round-based from the very beginning. Milo's so out of touch, blah, blah, blah. And like, I get it. People disagree with me. That's fine. But the reason I had said deceptive in that tweet was specifically in referring to things like this. And I think that it would equally be deceptive to say, we have loads of stuff planned for veteran players, and then for the truth of the matter there to be that they just have a pack-a-punch machine and perks. Now, in this case, I think that there is more for veteran players to probably dig their teeth into, most likely, but I feel like the marketing hasn't necessarily shown that in as meaningful a way as I would have liked. It's shown bits and pieces of it, don't get me wrong, but I feel like they could be doing a better job of actually representing what the hardcore players in this group are going to be sinking those teeth into in this new Modern Warfare Zombies mode, because the Lord knows we will not be sinking our teeth into yet another pack-a-punch machine. Now, to further expound not just on the marketing, but actually on what we've seen of the game so far, these are my impressions of the gameplay based on not having been invited to COD Next. I'm being completely honest with my opinions here. Also, like, declaring my bias here, being in this group, that's where I identify myself as. And also, having done a stream where I talked to a couple thousand people about this. Again, you can't just write off my opinion when there's a couple thousand people that literally agree with it and are echoing that in a live stream chat. And these are the sort of conclusions that they came to, and I will tell you what I do and don't agree with. So the atmosphere to begin with. It's grungy. I think that that is the best way to describe it. It's dark. It's not very Treyarch, because, like, even if we look at things that are not the Zombies mode, right? You look at maybe a Blackout. It was a pretty poppy, cartoony, vibrant kind of mode. You look at 9, you look at Voyage, you go a bit older, you look at DE, you look at Gorod. Like, Gorod was trying to be a little bit dark, right? A little bit grungy. I mean, it's set in Stalingrad, for Christ's sakes. But even then, it was pretty poppy, pretty vibrant, right? I mean, Gobblegum were getting thrown in the air every 5 seconds, so even if it wasn't the map itself doing the job, it was Dr. Monty's machines lighting up those corridors. And that's why this mode that looks like it's really seeking seriousness and grounding and stability and reality doesn't feel very Treyarch to me. I don't mean to only use old examples as well. I think that Cold War generally was a fairly vibrant mode. I think that less so than the older stuff. It was definitely moving in the more kind of controlled and reality-based direction. But even so, Cold War still felt like it was overall pretty goofy. Whereas this looks like it is really trying not to be goofy right now. And so atmosphere-wise, I think that it's not the sort of thing that I personally would choose being in this category, but I think that there are a lot of people out there that are like, oh yeah, like a actual apocalypse, like a 28 days later kind of vibe. Like people in this group especially being like that kind of zombies overrunning the world kind of phenomenon. That sounds cool as hell to explore. I love that idea. So for them, this is a positive. But for me in this group, I don't like the desaturation, the overall dark brown and dark sort of desaturated purple aesthetic that much of the gameplay has. It's actually, incidentally, one of the same reasons that I've never really liked the color palette of Nuketown Zombies. I just think that it's just a bit like There. Now, within that more reality-based world, you then do have these sci-fi elements like a Pack-a-Punch machine, or primarily based on the trailer, perk machines that give you complete creative whiplash from the serious tone established elsewhere. And this happens multiple times in the trailer, where you've got this really serious operator-based moment happening where you almost don't care about anything else beyond the fact that you look like some kind of soldier working their way through a scary world. Like, it might not even be a zombies world. And then quick snap to a perk machine and it's Speed Cola. It's like, what? Bro, I thought we were being serious and now we're being goofy. But then we're back to serious again. Like, it's giving real whiplash. So based on all of that stuff, the atmosphere is not doing it for me. This doesn't feel like zombies to me. But I will say, graphically, it looks good. Like, I don't think that we've regressed back behind the levels that we had at Cold War, for instance. I think that Cold War looked pretty good. And so graphically, like, I'm not unhappy in a fidelity sense. I'm just not super pleased in an art direction sense. But again, I think that a lot of people, this group especially, are really happy about the art direction. Now let's talk weapons. The Wonder Weapon looks cool. I think that the majority of round-based players probably are seeing this Wonder Weapon and going, you know what? It looks like a fun weapon. The fact that you can use it for movement as well as for taking down zombies is great. It's like a paralyzer, except a paralyzer that could only be cranked to like max settings or 0 settings almost. And the fact that the ray gun is back is like, yeah, sure, that's good. That's fine. I think these people are probably well happy that the ray gun's back. That is an iconic thing for them. They always love getting it. But in this group, I think that the ray gun being back, just that alone, isn't like, oh my God, I have to buy the game now. Further on from that, I think that these folks seeing that you can extract ray guns and then get ray guns on a cooldown timer and they reset like every 48 hours are probably a bit terrified of that prospect. Because from the weapons perspective, for many round-based enjoyers, spawning in with a loadout weapon in every game of Cold War took away a little bit from the old zombies sensation of building up from nothing and climbing that power curve ladder. Personally, I don't mind loadout weapons too much. I think that they were a good change ultimately. And I think that there are probably a lot of conversations in this group that go both ways. I think some folks probably love them. Other folks are like, I want my M1911 back, man. Make me spawn in with my M1911. But like I said, going further down that road, the idea of you extracting wonder weapons gets a little scary to me because zombies has always been, even in Cold War where they changed the formula up, about the idea of growing in power based on the points that you earn and therefore meeting the requirements of the zombie threat around you as you continue to scale your character's abilities through more powerful weapons, through perks, through armor that you might be getting, etc. And if you're extracting wonder weapons and then using them in games, it's like popping a perkaholic every time you spawn in. And granted, that can be fun on occasion, but you also recognize in that moment that that's completely taking away the sort of fundamental foundation of what the mode is, in a sense. And in my stream, when I asked people about this, they said that they were very worried about the extraction of wonder weapons as a feature because sure, it's fun, but does that then mean that the overall grind is kind of compromised? Because why would you continue to grind if you can just spawn in with a ray gun? Like, why would you bother? On the weapons front, Pack-a-Punch returning is a good thing. I think that hardcore players are going to want there to be more expansive abilities based on the Pack-a-Punch in the future. And that goes for alternate ammo types, like I mentioned before, and also maybe just Pack-a-Punch tiers or just something to just give the machine a little bit more of possibility for creative usage. But as it stands, it's fine. And then the weapons rarities system returning is something that in my stream, folks were really upset about. They were really not happy about that as a feature. And I personally don't really mind it too much, but I can understand it being annoying. And so I wanted to just share that that's what a lot of folks were saying in my stream. Movement wise, Modern Warfare 3 in the beta feels really great. The movement in the game overall feels really good. And so I'm excited to see what we get movement wise in the zombies mode. I think that Black Ops 3 Zombies had the best movement system in zombies that we've ever had, purely because bouncing around, going from slide to jump in that game is the best sensation ever. And in Cold War, we had moments of that, like you being able to do those moves on certain kind of rails and things like that and getting a massive speed boost from it. That felt good, but it still for me didn't beat the Black Ops 3 version of being able to just pull that stuff out anywhere. It was very good though, don't get me wrong. And I think that Modern Warfare 3 is looking like it's going in that same direction as Cold War, except we don't really know how that mantling is going to work. And I'm a little worried that we're not going to be able to get those speed boosts off like debris and stuff in the environment. And as a result, it might be a little less fun than Cold War. So from that perspective, despite the fact that the wider movement system, I think, is better, like the MP that we have in Modern Warfare 3 is probably going to be liked more than the MP in Cold War. I think that in a zombies context, there is other stuff that is a little bit more questionable, or at least giving people in this group a little bit of pause and hesitation right now. Now, the overall gameplay flow thing is a really tricky one to evaluate, because this is one of the things that I think they've done a really poor job of explaining to the player base. But based on my current understanding, you spawn in, there are 3 world tier zones. You start off in the weakest one, and in that one, you can take out zombies fairly easily. In the second tier, zombies are around round 20 kind of vibes. And in the third tier, they're around round 50 kind of vibes. And so you've got to play through, try and extract, take your weapons, use them for your next run, etc. Part of what I loved about Outbreak was the fact that I could just take as long as I wanted in that mode. And there's a 1 hour time limit in this. And you can extend that time limit, but it's only for specific story missions, which currently it doesn't seem like you can replay. I think those missions only happen once. And the reason for that is I think they work the same way to the DMZ mission system that we had in this past year of Call of Duty. As a result, I think it would be deceptive for me to present the idea that you can just extend the game anytime you want to. It doesn't seem like that's the case based on my current understanding. And as such, I'm going to just go ahead here and say there is a 1 hour time limit for all intents and purposes. And I think that people in this category who are looking forward to the game probably don't fully realize that there is a 1 hour time limit just yet. I think that that's the sort of information that wouldn't have quite gotten to them based on the marketing we've seen so far, or at least less obviously than it has done for this group, for instance. And I think that some folks in that category probably don't care because they probably play Outbreak for 30 minutes and then get off anyway. But I think there are also people in this group, and then therefore people in every single other quarter here, that are thinking there's a time limit. Why am I playing a game mode that's zombies branded with a time limit? That feels wrong, and I don't like it. And I think that the round-based folks, especially in the hardcore camp, are going to be especially feeling that, thinking, this just doesn't feel like the zombies that I know and love. Like, what does the time limit actually give us that is a positive? Like, that's a benefit. What does that add to the experience? It basically is a mechanism to ensure that I do try and extract at some point. But if I don't really care too much about extracting, because an extraction is just an extraction. It's not a high round. It's not a pinnacle achievement. It's just an extraction. And one extraction is just the same as another extraction. Why would I want to keep doing that? So it's something that I don't necessarily want to do. So it's a feature, this time limit, that I'm not necessarily super keen on in the first place, that's encouraging me to do something that I'm not yet convinced I actually want to do that much. So that, I think, is currently a problem for those hardcore round-based players. But I do think, to be completely transparent, that in terms of looking at the overall picture of the zombies community, most people probably play zombies for less than an hour per session. And Activision have probably done a bunch of testing, and they've probably gathered a bunch of statistics and probably found that that is the case. And that's probably part of the reason why it's there in this game and it's not an hour 30 limit, for example. Because probably, based on what they've seen internally, that's the number that makes sense. Whether or not we like it in this group, for the overall cohort, that's probably what they've landed on. The balancing of solo versus co-op is also something that, just like I mentioned with this group, is going to really infuriate this group. A lot of people play round-based zombies solo, and as a result of the solo version of the game not really being all that fun, and also having to play it online, that's going to anger a lot of those people, and that makes me sad, man. I don't want to have to play online 24/7 when the servers are bugging out, and I'm sitting there going, well, I want to just play a little bit of zombies right now. Like, that sucks. That's an awful experience. And we've gone in the past from having the option of playing online with other people, or playing locally with other people, or playing locally alone, to having fewer options now, and that just doesn't feel great. So I think that that's another reason why the round-based hardcore community is looking at this and going, well, that sucks. In terms of the AI and enemies present in the game, I think that, like I said before, folks in these categories are probably thinking, oh, the Mangler is back, and we've got the friggin' ring wraith thingies, the name escapes me right now, you know, they're like those ones, Palpatine, whatever they're called, they're back. And obviously the zombies look like the zombies from Cold War pretty much, and you've got the Mega Abomination, which is a big abomination, and the abomination is a kind of favorite, maybe, I guess, from Cold War. The Margwa is definitely a favorite, so let's call the Abomination a favorite. That coming back probably is something that, again, these people see and they go, that looks familiar, I can't wait. Whereas in this group, you get comments saying, it's a reskin, bruv, what's going on here? I think that there is an argument to be made that from a storyline perspective, it would have been cool to see the Dark Ether's incarnation of zombies and this dark energy and the way it manifests mutating and changing over time in a more transformative way. Because sure, the Abomination is bigger, and sure, the Emperor Palpatine looking ass is in a different model now with a different outfit. Like, that has happened, but it still feels pretty much the same. And I think that, especially based on the fact that there's been so much time that's passed in the Dark Ether, like 400 years or something have passed in the Dark Ether, maybe we should have seen a bit more transformation in that time. And I also think that just from a gameplay perspective, it doesn't look right now like there's a huge amount that is gonna change the experience on the zombies front, apart from the human AI. Let me just get this out there. Since Advanced Warfare came out, Advanced Warfare Zombies, specifically Exo Zombies, I've been saying with my chest, I hate human AI in zombies. I hate it. I think that the zombies experience should never, ever include a situation where I am being shot with a hit scan weapon. I think that something like a parasite in Shadows of Evil, totally fine. It's shooting a projectile at me, but it's a little blob and I can go, yeah, missed me. I think that things like the Panzer Claw, fine again. But as soon as you start getting into territory where there is a soldier with a gun going, and you are having your little red mark on your screen appear when you get hit and you take damage, and it's just going, that sucks. And that's just always been my opinion. From a gameplay design perspective, do I think it's objectively bad? No. I think that there's probably smart ways to make that sort of thing work. But certainly from what we've seen over the years, I think that all of the attempts so far have failed, in my opinion. And as a result, the fact that they are leaning so heavily into human AI in this mode, which shoots you, is something that gives me a lot of concern, like a huge amount of concern, because I don't want to jump into the zombies experience and feel like I'm playing chaos mode from Modern Warfare 3. Like, I want to jump in and feel like I am playing against this zombie threat, which works in a zombie capacity, and that the dance of playing zombies, of moving constantly and rotating around this horde and grouping them up and stuff, that should be kind of the central thing which the enemy types of the mode challenge me with and iterate on in order to create new challenges and a new kind of gameplay flows. Instead, they've just sort of resorted to, there are people with guns, just like there are in every other part of Call of Duty ever. Have fun with that. And I think that's unfortunate. Personally, does not speak to my interest at all. I'm not a fan. Okay, now let's talk about the world boss. I think the world boss looks really cool. It's a big ass worm. I've kind of got no complaints, to be honest. Like, if you said to me 5 years ago, we were going to get a zombies mode that just had a world boss, I'd be like, cool. It's a bit of an unknown in terms of how it's actually going to work, whether it's going to end up being really annoying, what the mechanics are going to be like, etc., etc. As it stands right now, just from wording alone of a world boss, I'm like, hell yeah, world boss. So again, things are vague as it stands, but that one is a thumbs up from me. Another thing to consider is the overall kind of economy of the game, because if you're extracting, then there's a persistent economy, there's some kind of persistent loot system. And again, that's something that we really don't have enough detail about right now to fully evaluate. But as it stands, it doesn't feel to me like there is a lot to meaningfully grind for beyond the camo system if you're into camos. And I think that, again, if we consider this little quarter here, I think many people in this group do enjoy grinding for camos, but I actually think many also don't. I'm in the don't category. I've never grinded for camos in any game. I just don't think that it's that much fun, because that's not what I'm playing zombies for. Like, I'm not playing it to like check that little checklist, but many people do really enjoy that. And so on the extraction side, for someone that's similar to me in not really being a huge fan of the camo grind, I'm not seeing a huge amount of stuff right now at launch that is going to be a reason to come back to the mode very often. Why would I? I mean, I can extract with a perk can, okay? Can't I just jump into the game and buy a perk? Like, it's 2,500 points. It's not that deep. And they couldn't really say anything else about there being cooler stuff to extract with beyond, again, just like the wonder weapon. But then that gives me concerns about the overall power dynamic of everything, right? So I'm like, what is exactly the carrot on the end of the stick here? I'm not really feeling it. I'm not getting it. And I think that some folks actually in this category are probably feeling slightly similarly right now, where they're like, in terms of that end game and the extraction system and stuff, I liked Outbreak a lot, but part of the reason I liked it was the Easter eggs to go for, and then it was the kind of constant iteration going to those higher world tiers and just trying to do better. And that's why I think that a lot of these folks were sort of siphoned from these folks because they liked that trying to do better aspect, but they just wanted to do it in a slightly different sandbox. But I think they're probably looking at things now going, well, it doesn't have the world tier thing. It's just got this tier 3 zone, but then I'm leaving after an hour anyway. And if I don't like the camo grind, once again, what is it that I'm really coming back for here? And I think that that's a question that Treyarch needs to answer. To be completely honest, I've spoken to some people that were at COD Next, and they've said that they don't have a very clear answer to that question of what there would be to grind for in this mode, beyond camos. And that needs to get sorted. So overall, I think that the round-based group probably are coming in more like a sort of 3, but with some folks that are actually more sort of close to actually being a 5. And the reason for that is that I think if you average out over the people that only want actual round-based, like they're all just giving this 1s, but then also the other folks that are like a little bit more like, yeah, I mean, it's not round-based, but like we'll get a main quest eventually, so that makes me a little bit more interested. They're probably more towards like a 3 or a 4. I think if you average all that out, it's around a 3. And I think also if you take into account the fact that a lot of the folks in this category would probably prefer there to be no zombies this year, so Treyarch could focus more on zombies next year, and their next round-based thing could have their full dev resourcing and full development cycle aimed and pointed towards it. Those folks are probably also rating this like a 1 or a 2. But the reason that I'm saying that there is this 5 cohort here is that I think that there are a large number, why did I say that so weirdly? Large number of round-based players who think what they've seen so far doesn't look good. Like internally, they're like, I'm guessing it's going to be a 3, but they're willing to just give it a shot and actually find out. Like they don't want to judge it exclusively based on the marketing. They want to play first and then know what their opinion is. And I think that those people are pretty close to that sort of like 5 kind of number in their group. So where exactly do I personally stand? Ooh. Well, contrary to the opinions of many, I don't hate everything. Just trailers without sound. I definitely feel like this is the kind of quarter that describes me, but I also definitely really enjoyed Outbreak. So like, I'm not a round-based player that thinks that round-based is objectively super duper superior to Outbreak. And as such, I don't want you to assume that I'm just automatically at 3 out of 10 for the mode. My current view is if we have a good year for Warzone and for the wider kind of sales numbers of Call of Duty, it's going to be a good year to be a Zombies fan. There is going to be stuff that they put into that mode based on the fact that the game is selling and the mode is yet another vehicle for them to sell people skins. And the fact that I've played the Modern Warfare 3 beta and it does feel good and the sound is so satisfying and things like that, and they're making a lot of changes that do seem really community oriented, combined with the fact that it's Treyarch working on this Zombies mode, and I know that people like Kevin Drew really do care about making a fun Zombies mode for Zombies players. Those things coming together point me in a positive direction for this game in a big way. For the Zombies mode specifically, I'm talking here. Do I think that their marketing does a really bad job often at actually lighting up and exciting this cohort of people? Yeah, I think that their marketing could be a lot better. And do I think that the way that they manage the community could improve? Absolutely. Am I disappointed there's no main quest Easter egg at launch? Yeah, I think that if you're going to call something Zombies, many people are going to assume that a Zombies mode, or at least anything worth its salt, we're disregarding Vanguard here because it was not worth its weight in salt. It was hardly worth its weight in dust. Like, it really just failed on launch. I think that we can pretty much collectively agree on that, hopefully. So with that in mind, looking at this and seeing no main quest Easter egg is a disappointment. But then seeing that it's coming later down the line is at least some small relief from that. Seeing the lack of seeming endgame right now, or the at least questionably described endgame, is a concern, and that is a negative in my book, as is the overall aesthetic that they are going for here, because I really loved the older Treyarch style, and it feels like this is very much Modern Warfare Zombies, and I've just never been that into the Modern Warfare universe. Transparently, just from a subjective opinion perspective, I think that the Modern Warfare world is boring relative to the really amazing fireworks in brain-inducing experiences that I've had on the Black Ops side. I've always been a much bigger fan of the Black Ops series because of that. But I also know that the narrative team working on this game are going to be doing everything they can, because they work at Treyarch, remember? They're going to be doing everything they can to make it feel Treyarchy. And so even though as it stands right now, I'm looking at this from the outside going, this aesthetic is not doing it for me, and I really hate the overall kind of realism angle, and the color palette is not to my liking, and the art direction is not to my liking, I still have some hope that we're going to jump into the game and that Treyarch vibe is going to jump out, and those sorts of Treyarch twists and playing with our experience and understanding of reality and all of those things that Treyarch do best. I'm hoping that those are going to jump out, and I think that there's a good chance that they do. So I'm not writing it off in that department by any means. I think that genuinely it could be a really good year for the story. It's just too early to say. I am tentatively quite excited though. It's going to be a challenge for them, but I'm actually pretty excited. Again, keeping my expectations as grounded as I can so I don't get disappointed, as you should be as well. So my number, if I had to give it one, which is something I don't really like doing for like something I haven't even played yet, right? But overall, like, I'm going to give it a real solid chance. I'm going to post a bunch of videos on it. I'm going to make a load of story videos. I'm going to do a load of guides, all that stuff. I'm going to give it its absolute fair shot. My evaluation number from what I've seen so far, based just on the gameplay, like separating my qualms with the marketing out of it, I'd say it's actually sitting sort of around a 7, like a low 7. Like if there was a little spectrum between these two groups here, I think that I'm probably about there in terms of the number scale, at least. Like I'm not a 5. I'm not just like, here's whatever. And I do think that there's a lot that they still have to answer. And again, the marketing, I think, has made me feel at times, and on stream and in some of my previous videos, feel a lot closer to this part of that spectrum. But as it stands right now, having chewed on it for a few days, I'm basically going to give it a shot. And I think that in the wider context of the game itself being a good base platform for fun experiences to be built on, and knowing that the team intends at least to try and make fun stuff for us this year, I am going to give it a try kind of cohort. And if it sucks on launch, then I will say why I think it sucks, and I will continue to be completely transparent with you guys, even though my life would be so much easier if I didn't spend what has currently been in recording, probably a bit shorter in the edit, but an hour and 35 minutes drawing circles on a whiteboard, trying to present everybody's opinion, and still somehow angering everyone. Because that's where I always end up. And I recognize that it's a Sisyphean effort for me to try and make videos that do please everyone. And yet still here I am, an hour and 35 in, losing my voice here. Now, I mentioned at the start of the video that this sausage would return eventually, and that is the sausage of old players who prefer the old style and they don't really like Cold War. To be completely honest with you, I think that this year is going to be a bad year for you if you're one of those people. If you're an old round-based enjoyer and you didn't like Cold War, I think that this is probably a 2, because it's so far from that old experience, so far. And I don't think it's going to be really trying to get anywhere close to the old experience that you know and love. Because if they do introduce a round-based mode like later in the year, it's going to feel like Cold War. I guarantee it. And so for you old folks that are outside this group, right, and you want just the old zombies back from 2012-13, you're going to be out of luck. Now, I will say there are certain things I've heard down the grapevine about next year's COD that do give me a little bit of a question or a hint or wondering about whether these people might be able to start paying a little bit more attention again. But as it stands, that stuff is still very far out. I've heard some little bits and pieces, like Lil Birdie's been talking to me, you know? And as it stands, there have been some positive rumblings, let's say. But that could all change next week. So I'm not going to categorically say anything in that regard right now. I'm just going to say that this year, probably, if you're in this sausage, it's a 2 out of 10 for you, I'm sorry. And so finally, if you're a new player, what do you probably think about this? You're probably thinking, yeah, looks pretty good. And as such, I reckon you're in the sort of like 9 kind of territory, because you just want to jump on for a little bit and like shoot some zombies and also have it feel like modes that you know, which is Warzone, and it's on a Warzone map, so it's as close as you're ever going to get to that. And that is also a positive thing for Treyarch's next game, because it's going to mean that there is even more people indoctrinated into the world of zombies that can then be funneled into slightly more difficult and challenging and old zombies feeling experiences, and the zombies community can get more attention from the devs and just more development resources, etc., because the player base there is larger. And that is a positive thing for us all. So am I excited for this year's Zombies? You know what? Yeah, I'm willing to give it a shot. And I'm willing to see what Treyarch has to offer. And if what Treyarch has to offer sucks ass, I'll let you know. But until then, I don't know whether it sucks or not. And I tried to articulate this on my stream. Like, there is knowing that it's amazing, knowing that it sucks, and then there is us in the middle trying to basically guess where we are based on marketing, and that's very difficult. But I think that overall, my guess, if I had to make one, is that this is going to be an okay year. It's not going to be a 3 out of 10 year in my best guess. I think that it's going to be an okay year. So my current standing, like I said, is gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna keep tearing into them when they make decisions that I think are bad, because I love the mode and I want it to improve. And I think that criticism in that regard, especially from someone that's been around the block for so goddamn long at this point, is probably beneficial. And especially when I speak and I have thousands of people in my comment section saying, you know what, you just articulated something I've been trying to say about zombies better than I ever could. So thank you. So I'm gonna keep on being a pain in the ass to all the people that think I'm out of touch and that my opinion is stupid. Sorry. And hopefully the best case scenario here is we'll have a bit of fun on Zombies this year. That'd be great. We'll see though. No guarantees. Don't get your hopes up. Don't pre-order the game. Whatever you do not pre-order the game. I don't care what group you're in. I don't care if you're 9 out of 10. No one's pre-ordering. That is a bad idea just in general. We all saw what happened with Vanguard. Don't do it. With that said, I need to stop talking now. I still have this mystery throat condition that I've had for the past year. I am in so much pain. I cannot stress how painful this video has been to record for me. So I'm going to go and dunk myself into a bucket of ice and try and soothe the pain that I'm experiencing. And you are going to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Thank you. I've been MrRoflWaffles. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.